Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is the third time I am trying to record. The first time, all of a sudden, mysteriously, my camera's not working, so I had to restart my computer. Very strange. And the other two times, there was just random interference. But welcome to this video. My name is Laura, and we're going to continue our psychic insight. I am the founder of Innate Healer and Shamanic Self. You can find me at pleadinghealer.com. We're going to continue with what we were going through. So today we're going to discuss Great Flood, timeline shift, radiation poisoning, and more. There's a playlist up new to this channel. Check that one out. I'm also going to create the playlist Psychic Insight, and I'll put all these videos in it. And there's also a video on the Georgia Guidestones from last summer in it already. So we'll probably have a collection of videos in there. Not that other videos are not psychic insight. It's more that this is going to be a series of, where we just share all these random topics. And so these are questions that were asked by my patrons, and they're already like back from the summer or the fall of 2022, but I'm sharing them with you right now. So I answer them through means of my own intuition, and I'm also getting yes and no answers through the means of tarot and oracle cards. Now, if you use them in a way without calling in entities or angelic demons and all of that, spirit misguides, you are very well able to receive accurate answers. If you want to know how, you can take my course, Learn Tarot Like a Pro. And let's just dig into this right now. So we were kind of at the Akashic Records being a program. That was the last video. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. We're going to continue with flames. So by flames, I basically mean similar to the concept of the violet flame. I have a video out on where I was already kind of discussing how, the violet flame in terms of the New Age concept. I'll link that here too. My question was, are all flames part of the hell realm? So you have the violet flame, you have the blue flame, you have all these other random flames, which typically the New Age really promotes. So we don't need any of these flames to empower ourselves. We are being kept strung up and floating in the air. So I think the card that came out was actually the Hanging Man card, which is pretty telling. Both the Akashic Records and the Violet Flames keep us busy and distracted from the real thing. So are flames part of the hell realm, or what exactly is up with these flames? I got the Hunter. They're harvesting our energy through it somehow. Maybe we're also feeding into their vision. So this is a form of shape-shifting too. It gives these people power to go shapeshift into what they are and go hunting, basically hunting for our energy. And it's also causing a whole lot of drama and distractions. Could also be weather changes and clashes that these flames basically call in. You have to see it in the sense of when people use these magic type of things, they're basically feeding into this higher system, similar to the Lionsgate portal, which we're going to have in the summer. We're going to have more videos on that, but I already have a video on it, how the Lionsgate portal, you're basically just feeding into the agenda of whoever's in control of your energy. And that's why they want you to meditate during this time specifically, because they're harvesting your energy. And so similar with using all these things like the flames, you're feeding into their own system, and they're able to feed off of your energy through it, because the more people do it, the stronger it gets somehow. So it gives these people the power. It's not calling in a lot of great stuff. We have to do a vision quest on our own somehow in regards to finding the truth regarding a lot of these things. So instead of just going out there, reading all these blog posts, reading all these Instagram posts, watching all the YouTube videos on, oh, this is a violet flame meditation, or this is a blue flame from Archangel Michael type of meditation. How about you just go out there, if you want, meditate or do some journeying and find your own truth, right? Like find your own power, and you will notice very quickly that you don't have to call in any of these flames or any of these concepts when doing that. What do flames symbolize? That's when I got the karma card, like the karmic trench card. So basically, flames can, so this is where it gets confusing, because fire, the symbol of fire in and of itself can actually transmute and purify. And that's how I also think there's more to the flames overall, and just that this concept got hijacked down the line, similar to the Akashic records. But in short, flames can purify, but somehow in most of these things, it has to do with karmic stuff. And you want to empower yourself from that. So you don't want to fall down the karmic trap over and over again. There's also another connection to the archangels somehow with these flames, because a lot of flames are associated with the archangels. I think the blue flame is associated with Archangel Michael. The violet flame, I'm not sure if it's, what are all these other names? Gabriel, Raphael, Nathaniel, I have no idea. But people who've been following this stuff for a while, they would probably know. So there's a connection to the archangels. It's not necessarily something you want to be calling in. Then I had like the treasure chest card. So they're trying to get to your soul. Whenever I have like the treasure or coins, it's always like soul pieces to me. Soul, they're trying to get to your soul, to your energy. They are really messing with your soul pieces while doing that too. And it didn't feel great when I was reading on it and tapping into it. It didn't feel great. I also got the praying mantis, which the praying mantis is not a good card. Leaving the heart at the door, it can symbolize your heart and trying to get your heart, or trying to hijack it somehow through the crown and through psychic insight. So these are these other psychics who are trying to hijack it somehow. Okay, that's flames in short. And then we had some interesting questions. This is from around October 2022. How many of the current illnesses have to do with EMF or radiation poisoning? So I kind of bunched that into one, because EMF is a form of radiation, but it's not the only form of radiation. However, I do think it's one of the most significant ones right now, especially over the past few years, you know, with all the cell phone tower damage and everything. Ironically, we got the mirror card. So we're going to have a video on mirrors. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be so interesting. It's going to blow your mind. But basically, how many of these current illnesses have to do with radiation poisoning? Quite a few. The mirrors, it has to do with the watchers. So I had a video on the watchers. They watch you through mirrors and also through the screens. So a lot of times these cell phone screens are black, but they're basically like a mirror, right? And that's kind of like the black screen. Wasn't there a movie or Netflix series about the black screen somehow? Mirror and black screen is almost the same. Probably more illnesses than we realize, but nature can stabilize it. So if you are under the influence of EMF, if you're being poisoned by it, which I've had a few sessions in the past, like actually the past few months, where there were a couple of people who had significant damage to their DNA because of EMF poisoning and radiation. And I kind of concluded they were either working somehow in a hospital, like in the, you know, where they do a lot of these imagery, what is it called, the X-ray imagery, or that they were living close to one of those huge towers somehow. But whatever it was, they had a lot of radiation going on and DNA damage. So nature can stabilize it, which is very important, which is also why it's really important to go into nature, to go into a park. You know, I'm in a huge city. I don't necessarily have nature around me in that sense, but I like to go to parks, especially since I have a pet and we like to take very long walks. And if my dog does not go into nature quite a few times a week, if not every day, they just get antsy. So animals are very connected to that nature aspect. And humans were too at one point, but then it was taken away from us, right? Nature can stabilize all these illnesses caused by radiation poisoning. People need to go into nature more because they're not doing it enough. You can be exposed to all this radiation, but if you go into nature every day or so, it's manageable. Nature can also be beaches and me just going to a pool. So disconnect to nature in general is not helping the EMF radiation. We can stand in our power and truth to avert it too. The main issue really was the disconnect to nature. Also, people being burnt out and doing way too much multitasking. A stressful lifestyle brings you down too. Some people are not aware of that. A lot of these stressful lifestyles have to do with radiation poisoning. So the way we're living right now, if you look back up to 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or right after the World Wars, we were not living that way, right? So it's definitely something newer that they're pushing onto us. I got a lot of wand cards. I kind of saw it as radiation poisoning. You need a shield. Somehow, like the EMF shield that I discussed in a few YouTube lives, I have a shield for my cell phone. I actually tried out 3 different ones, one of those covers. The cheapest one I got was $10 from Amazon. It seemed to be the most effective. You can measure it by trying to call your own cell phone when putting it in there for a minute or longer. And if the call doesn't go through, it's a pretty high sign that you would be shielded from that somehow. I also got an EMF cover for my router, actually, and it seems to be doing a bit better, but the most EMF is going to come from your cell phone, not necessarily your router and not necessarily your laptop, but your cell phone right now. If you have a newer phone, like 4 years or younger, because mine came out in 2017, 2018, and I know the radiation coming from that is much stronger than from the phones I had in 2015, for example. If you have one of those newer phones, there's a lot of EMF radiation coming from it. And you can maybe feel that even when you touch it with your hand on the screen. I felt that very clearly. So you need a shield. It can cause sleepless nights for some people, the entire radiation poisoning. Maybe wands can protect that too. So maybe there's something like EMF protection wands even is kind of what I concluded with that. Okay, here's another interesting question. Are there any foods, seeds, and meat out there in general which have not been genetically manipulated or modified? So we kind of got the moon card, which I saw as deception. There could be, but we are living in this deception is the real problem. So even though they're telling us, oh, go to the organic farmer, go to the Amish people, go to this and that, the real problem is there's still so much deception around all of this. The FDA has certain guidelines, whereas other people, like other countries, have other guidelines. And so food in Germany, for example, used to be very good, but over the past 15 years or so that I haven't lived there, and I come back like every other year or so, or I used to come back quite frequently to visit, I noticed a lot of food just doesn't taste the way that it used to. And so I concluded that even in Germany, the food isn't as bio or organic as they're saying it is. There's something off with it. Usually, like the veggies come from the greenhouse in the Netherlands and all those kind of things. So there's something going wrong and we're being deceived over and over again. Even if they have the label of the organic on it, it doesn't necessarily mean it is. Maybe if we plant our own seeds and cook our own foods, we can make it work, but there are structures and institutions hijacking it all. That's the problem. But with foods, intention is everything too. Also, going back to ancestral knowledge on how to do all of this, how to do all these old school cooking rituals, like baking, cooking, like, they had like the stone ovens or just like the stone pots, all of that. And love can change a lot about food. I do want to say that saying thank you before eating and giving thanks to your own food and giving love to it, energy can change the food, the vibration of the food. And it might sound crazy to some people, but this is actually one of the first things when I first embarked on this entire shamanic healing path. It's one of the first things that I actually learned from a friend. If you don't appreciate the food, this is like, it nourishes you, it gives you strength. So they were saying thanks to their food before every single meal. I was sitting, so it was my shamanic friend and her shaman boyfriend. So we were sitting in this restaurant in New York City back in 2017. And I think it was Middle Eastern food or something, I don't know. But basically we were just talking, and then all of a sudden both of them kind of just become very silent, and he's like just giving thanks to the food and blessing it or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because it also gives us a moment to pause and to think, oh, where did this food come from? Like, I'm lucky enough to even have food, you know, I can actually afford to have this food and all of that. So giving thanks to your food matters, and also infusing love into it. Even if it's processed, by the way, it can change the vibration somehow. It can change it somehow. I'm not saying eat processed food and give thanks and you'll be good. No, you should definitely try to eat as healthy as you can. But if you are going to be in a situation like traveling or whatever, where that's the only thing you have, you know, just think about maybe giving love to it or thanks. So appreciating it already changes the structure of food somehow. Maybe all these things need to be retrieved somehow, meaning the ancestral knowledge. Do the Amish have pure foods? Because I actually get some things from the Amish too. I actually get raw milk and eggs. So what else do I get? I get like bone broth from the Amish. But I didn't get a pure yes on that, which I found a bit confusing. I do think the food from the Amish, because I'm on the East Coast here and you have Amish people. I know when you're on the West Coast or in other parts of the US, you don't necessarily have them. Here they are all over Pennsylvania. You have some in Delaware. You have some in, I don't know if you have some in Massachusetts. Usually it's like Pennsylvania area. So it seems it's more pure than what you would find with organic farms even, but it's still not 100% not genetically manipulated. So even with the Amish, I didn't get a clear yes. And it stinks that most food seems to be modified, but it is all about our intention and power. We may perhaps won't be able to avoid every single thing that has been modified, but intention can change a lot. They're trying to hijack your mind, but you can also change a lot with your mind. For example, when you have an illness and a disease, you can shift the way that you kind of feel about it, and you can become healthier sooner. So it's all about perspective and how you view things. Love can change a lot. And then we got to the timeline shift. So was there a timeline shift? Someone asked that. That was back in October. Not yet. It's not here yet. Right now, it seems we are on this painful timeline where a lot of people are still in pain. And empaths can really pick up on that. So all paths kind of lead towards the same direction. You know, there's a massive shift within you and soul growth because of that. It's important to clear yourself from attachment, or attachments in general, appreciating Earth's beauty. Maybe the timeline shift also doesn't really matter. So, you know, all these new cages who are like, oh, there's going to be the shift to 5D and this and that. I kind of felt it didn't even really matter. But what matters is clearing yourself from other people's energies. And then I kind of got to know the timeline shift is more, there's a balancing going on, leaving people hanging around. So it kind of is like, oh, you're going to finally go into 5D and 6D and 7D, but that's not really what's happening. It's just people are kind of drifting into these different realities due to different factors, but it's not really like the timeline shift that people are being promised who are still in that deceptive program. Not for most people, there's not a timeline shift. There's some movement around us right now. It's slow movement and the shift is very slow. So love partners could also help us right now, especially when feeling lonely, when people feel like they don't really have a tribe. You know, finding partners or just finding friends of the same mentality can also help. Alrighty, moving on to the Great Floods. This was also an interesting question. Was the Great Flood that's mentioned in the Bible about Atlantis sinking into the ocean? So the Bible is a script that they're giving us. Coming from a non-religious standpoint, that's basically what it is. And they're giving us a lot in the Bible, by the way. They're giving us so much that I actually still need to get my Bible and dig through all of that. You know, I already said, whenever they say God or Lord in the Bible, they basically mean a God or a Lord. There's more than one God, and people get it all mixed up because they're like, oh, he's just talking about God or the entity God. No, the Bible's talking about multiple different gods. And so when they're like, oh, a god just split the ocean in half and did this or whatever, is, you know, that's kind of what it is. It's just one of many gods, but they kind of, the religious structure, the hierarchy kind of makes it seem like there's only one god, and that's what people are supposed to worship. So yeah, is the Great Flood about Atlantis sinking into the ocean? No, I got that was a different story. It's the past returning. Maybe they want to usher in the Great Flood now again too. And then I kind of got this vision from, you know how Rome was built upon Romulus and Remus? Like these two boys who kind of started building Rome, the Rome origin story. So that's the city Rome, but also the Roman Empire. It's kind of similar to that. So two gods fighting each other, like the Anunnaki, Enki, Enlil, and Lil. It kind of like forced people underground, this entire thing somehow, the war between two gods or more gods, and also the Great Flood. There is a deception going on with the Great Flood and the Atlantis thing. The Atlantis thing was a high priestess era, somehow shining a light. Maybe a war was going on somehow with the Great Flood, and the Great Flood caused chaos. Also, in the story about the Great Flood, something kept popping up with two kids. That some people went up in the air too. So maybe they already had those airships that they had around the Tartarian period, you know, where people could just float around in the air, similar to airplanes, but not really. There could also be an oracle in Greece predicting the Great Flood already. But I felt the Great Flood has to do with the journey somehow, and people were going up in the sky already back then. There were two sides to the story. It definitely had to do with traveling. Maybe it forced people to travel from this realm to the next too. You know, similar to Avalon, where we were kind of thrown from one timeline into another. So from like a higher, you know, a more loving timeline, we were thrown back into like the full painful 3D timeline, all of that. That's kind of what it felt like to me with the Great Flood. So that was interesting, because we had a lot of these resets, similar to a reset, you know, and one of them where I was discussing the movies, one of the Matrix movies was talking about what 6, 7 resets that we already had. So the Great Flood felt like a reset. Avalon coming to an end felt like a reset. And also the entire Atlantis thing felt like a reset, but the Great Flood did not feel the same as Atlantis coming to an end. It forced people to travel from this realm to the next, or from a different realm to the next. People must have gone onto ships somehow, meaning also airships. It's not necessarily related to Atlantis, but something else was going on. History is repeating itself, though, and maybe they're trying to push us into that timeline again. I kept seeing like kids and the Garden of Eden. Maybe there was a connection to Atlantis, but it wasn't Atlantis. So, you know, if Atlantis is still going on, sure, it's Atlantis in a way, but not really. And people were forced into ships somehow. So it might be a bit confusing. I'm just reading off my notes right here. I pulled the cards, you know, a few months ago. I hope that makes sense somehow. Okay, another thing about time. What's up with time? Right now, time just seemed very, somehow was just, you know, very stretched, or time just kind of really racing by. Some people are in Zen and others are stressed. So they're trying to put some people in this Zen state, but then stressing others out by messing with their time. Maybe we have to relax more in order to have something from our time. They're also trying to rattle our time somehow. Maybe because Earth is changing, in order for you to gain the most out of time, look at the small things. Try to enjoy the small things and moments. Stop to smell the roses. Are people stuck in some kind of loop? People are stuck in childhood trauma and emotions from childhood. Also spend as much time as you can with family and kids to have your wish fulfillment. But there are multiple facets to this timing thing. Some people will feel stressed right now, or over the past few years already, whereas others not so much. And it's best to take it all in and slow down time by being present. So we have way more influence over time than they want us to know anyhow. You know, we're fully able to, you can stretch time out. Like like I already said in a few examples, in one story, time feels like 1 minute feels forever because you're silent, you're not doing anything in it. And another one, you're actually enjoying what you're doing. It feels like it's just going by like that, right? So it's best to take it all in, slow down time by being present. There's an importance of being present, and 100% present to be here right now and where we are. They are trying to take us out of our body right now in order to insert things into us, but it's harder to do so when we are in our body and don't have our heads in the clouds. So try to be in your body as much as you can. I found that interesting because, you know, I don't know if you have those people around you. I know in this huge city where I am, you just see people who are on the train, they're muttering to themselves because they're not present. They're somehow in their head. They're going through a conversation that they had with someone a few days ago or a few minutes ago, but they're not 100% present in the moment. And I feel that's when entities can really take over and create all these things that are going on. You know, people are just acting like maniacs, all of that. I feel all of that does not happen to people who are 100% present in their body and present in their life. And so these entities, these controllers, they're trying to take people out of their body and out of the present moment through various things such as AI, you know, being in front of a screen all the time, just having stuff inserted into you, all of that. But at the end of the day, the more present we are, the less they can do that. Even if you're someone who has zero knowledge of what's really going on in the world, who's kind of just like a yaysayer and all of that, if you're present in your body, there will be no time for fear. If you're present in the current moment, there's really, I mean, all these programs can't really harm you, right? And so that's really what it's about with time too. It kind of all ties into this time thing. I hope that explains it. Now here was another interesting question. Let's just answer this, and I think then we're gonna move on to the next video. So are we inside Earth similar to Middle Earth? Wherever we are, it's hard work. You know, it's hard. It's like it's a grind. It's harder than it used to be. Our hearts were broken by putting us where we are. Maybe we had to sacrifice something, the area where we were, and go inside Earth, especially after Atlantis exploded somehow or the meteorite hit. So they're always saying the meteorite that hit and kind of extinguished all the dinosaurs, all of that. I feel there's something to that story, but they're not giving us a full story of that. Because of that, maybe we were forced inside into the inside of Earth with the cave structures. So we are constantly being distracted from this. Whatever comes up comes down. How long have we been here? I got 3. So I don't know if that was 3,000 years or 3 reset cycles. And a reset cycle would be, for example, these are major ones, not smaller ones, by the way. It would be, for example, Avalon was a reset cycle. Maybe the time around Jesus or Jeshua was a reset cycle. So I kind of got around 3. I don't think it was 3 generations or 3 decades or 3 centuries. It felt more like 3,000 plus years. I got the Sweat Lodge card. There's a weird cave. That's like the weird cave-like structures. So we have to go inside where the light is. And we basically went inside Earth to survive. And then when the new cage is saying, oh, you have to go inside yourself, that all ties into it. You know, like the more we go inside ourselves, the more we're going to find the truth. And so we literally went from the outside inside, though. There's also water surrounding us. So the sky could be water because we're inside right now. Things were just really destroyed during Atlantis. Okay, here are a few more. This is a bit more about the sun and the moon. So I know we had that in the last one, but I'm just doing them as they come in. So is the sun fake? Is the sun a moon? We had to make a decision. maybe we had to make a decision between the sun and the moon. Maybe the sun is a reflection too. You know, maybe the sun is one of the moons, something with wands, or maybe the sun is a fireball wand. There are like 3 moons or 3 suns or 3 different suns where we are now. Are we possibly like in the circle-like thing? Are the moons fake? The moon is related to water somehow. Maybe somehow the sun and the moon were created in Atlantis so that we could have our wishes fulfilled, because we had to go underground. So we kind of created these fake things like the fake sun, the fake moon, because we had to go underground. Something was forgotten, or there's something we are missing. Maybe the sun changed and we had our wishes fulfilled by change somehow. Maybe the sun was also created by the archangelic realm, or they're in control. There were like wars about the sun, and then it diversified. So maybe there was a war in regards to the real sun, and they kind of divided up into a few pieces. That could be another explanation, but yeah, so that's so much what we got on that. I feel it all ties into what we already had in the other videos on it. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. So I hope this helped. And yeah, thank you so much for your support, everything you do. Stay tuned for the other videos. There will be a playlist, Psychic Insight, and there's also a playlist new to this channel if you want to check it out. Talk to you very soon. Bye.